Well, you probably know this. Churches struggle to pay the bills. Congregations are shrinking in size. We've done lots of stories about the decline in organized religion, but over the next few days, a group of millennials is gathering in Ottawa to talk about being young and religious. It's being organized by Cardus, which is a Christian think tank. Hannah Marazzi is the Faith in Canada 150 Millennial Summit Project Lead. Quite a title. And Mozynah Nofal is a summit delegate as well as a member of the Summit Advisory Council. And we've reached Mozynah from Quebec City, and Hannah joins me in the studio. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. I'm going to ask you a question that I think that in 20 years of asking questions, I've never asked someone point blank, what is your religion? It's been drilled into me my whole life. You don't talk about it, and you certainly don't ask. So,
Exactly.
Hannah, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm a Christian, and I come from a Mennonite background.
And how big a part of your life is your Mennonite faith?
It's central to everything that I do. It's a huge part of my life.
Mozynah?
I'm Muslim, and I, like Hannah, see faith as the framework for which I live.
Okay. And so, Mozynah, why did you want to hold an event where you'll be talking about your faith with other millennials?
Well, as a Canadian, overall, I see that our society needs faith because we forget to look at people as holistic people. We think of them as just mind and body, and we forget the soul. And I think, just coming from an education perspective, that's also limiting our human capacity and human potential. And as a person who has Egyptian roots, I recognize that faith has always contributed to civilizations, from ancient Egyptian civilization, Coptic and Muslim civilizations. And even in Canada, as we will see in the Faith 150 summit, how faith has contributed to the history of Canada.
When I was explaining how difficult it was for me to ask about your faiths, Mozynah, I could hear you say exactly. Do you find it difficult to talk about your religion?
Absolutely. I think that it's taboo, and not only to talk about my religion, but to be religious and to practice religiosity. It's almost like people would cringe at any religious expression, or when I say God in public spaces, in classrooms, in lectures, on campus when I was at university. You have this historical memories of faith being abusive, and that's only what's mentioned usually. And there's no discussion of faith as a positive force in our society. And I think that's what this project is all about, highlighting the other side of the story. And just like any idea, it could be abused if people are corrupt internally, but it also could be used in a very beautiful way. And it is a driving force. And you see how as a Muslim, faith has always been highlighted only when there's a big problem, only when there's trouble on the street. Then they say, oh, it's the first thing you actually hear. A Muslim man did this, or a Muslim group did that. But when it's a positive factor, nothing is mentioned about their religion. So I think that is extremely problematic, because then people start feeling disenfranchised if they are Muslim or if they are religious at any, with any faith. And then that causes marginalization, and then it could lead eventually to extremism and resentfulness towards society, that it is not accepting us the way we are and in our belief system.
I want to bring Hannah here because Mozynah's talking about how she mentioned God or religion and people cringe. As a Christian, do you sometimes get that when you talk about your faith with people that maybe don't know you well? Do they kind of back off?
There's always that critical moment where we both look at each other, but it's actually, for me, surprisingly in my life, been a tool that has allowed me to connect with people, because there's a moment when people's shoulders go down if I laugh and they say, I actually have a question, or I grew up Catholic, or I have very strong Jewish roots, and we begin to explore, and I actually end up in almost every conversation with a fuller sense of who they are as a person, and there's this invaluable sense of trust, which is delightful, and I think a lot more common than we realized if we would only take a chance.
Tell me who or which religions will be represented by this gathering. Who's coming?
Who's coming? We have 75 Canadians from across the nation, and we have delegates from the Baha'i community, from the Jewish community, from the Muslim community, from the various, Christian denominations. We have a Sikh community coming. We have Indigenous representatives coming. We have just such a variety, and it's amazing. There's diversity within those groups as well, which is what I'm so delighted about.
Do you have atheists coming or agnostics? Or they're not invited? I don't know.
No, this isn't meant to be an exclusive conversation. There's actually a Canadian interfaith conversation that happened. Our whole society held a conversation earlier this year as well. So we're actually just trying to carve out a space where individuals of different faiths can come together and say, you also have a sense of the transcendence. Right. What do we do with this together?
I'll be upfront. I'm part of a Christian faith, United Church, and when I go to church, a lot of folks in the I was going to say audience, in the pews have gray hair. It's an aging force. Mozynah, I'm wondering whether you think that millennials talking about faith are kind of outliers, that you're not typical in that sense, because religion is something that older people do.
Correct. How in society, that's usually what you see. Like even when we were looking at refugee sponsorship groups, mostly they're older folk in the community. But actually, my first involvement in faith communities in Canada has been in the Muslim Students Association. So that's where I first got involved. And actually, for me, it was a very different experience. It was always young people on campus or even high school students that are coming in and joining us. So for me, I've had a different experience. I know in the Muslim community, it's also an immigrant community, and there is a lot of young people that are extremely attached to their faith, and they really see faith as an important part of their life. So I think different faith groups will have different demographics. But definitely, there's a view that it's a very it's kind of swerving off, and younger people are not practicing their faith as much. However, that's not to say that they don't believe in something. Even though people would say, "No, I don't believe in a religion," they do have certain beliefs. They believe in a lifestyle. They believe in individualism, self-gratification, and I think what we're trying to say is that religion can be about freedoms as well. It's always viewed as a dogmatism, and that people don't have a mind to think for their own. And if you believe in a faith, you don't have your own convictions. However, that's what I found through Cardis and through other spaces where I can discuss faith, is that, like myself, people from different faith see their religion as actually freedom from consumerism, freedom from individualism, self-gratification. That doesn't become your primary focus in life. You might get that as well from religion, of course, but it's not the purpose of life.
Hannah, is there one conversation you hope to have over the next few days? What would that be?
Oh, I want to have so many, but I think the primary one is, how do we move forward in a genuine sense of pluralism? Because pluralism means doing life together, with the acknowledgement of our differences. And I think what we're trying to do with this summit is to create a space in the public sphere to contend for common life together, and to say, the role of faith and religion has been invaluable in shaping the communities that we call home.
Will you have, this is a really silly question, but will you have a name tag that says Hannah Mennonite? or do you just kind of go in there with an open mind and people have to figure it out in the conversation?
We've framed this entire summit. We've said relationally and dialectically. It's all about dialogue. It's all about relationship, faith and friendship. We cannot go forward without each other. We must do it together. So the name tags will not have that. We're actually going to say, go and talk to one another. Be brave, be vulnerable, ask the question. The words "I wonder" or "tell me, about yourself" are the most powerful. They connote possibility.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining me on the show this morning. Really interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Haley.
Hannah Marazzi is the Faith in Canada 150 Millennial Summit Project Lead, and Mozynah Nofal is a Summit Delegate as well as a member of the Summit Advisory Council.